Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TbT channel. Welcome back to part 2 of the HW35 strip, tune and rebuild. In this section, part 2, we're going to look at how to tune your rifle, what to do inside of it. Now, we've taken it all apart, it's in front of us and it's grubby. So the first thing we need to do is degrease everything. What I use is brake cleaner, aerosol brake cleaner. You can use pretty much any kind of degreaser, but make sure it doesn't leave any residue behind, and make sure whatever you use has completely gone before you start to rebuild the rifle. So we're just gonna put a little bit on the piston there. I'm oogling for my drill. I've mislaid it. I shall get it by magic in a second. So there we are, that's the piston degreased. Now we want to degrease inside of the compression tube, for which I have my magic and many years owned piece of stick with a hole in the end of it, or a slot in the end of it I should say. Ooh, let's get a clean bit. Hang the expense. Let's get a clean piece of tissue. Nobody wants a soiled tissue in their gun. Onto there thusly. Then we can poke him inside of here. Now remember, every time that the gun comes apart, or every time that the piston comes out of the compression tube needs degreasing. Okay, because even small amounts on the walls of the compression tube, when collected by the piston seal and pushed to the end, they will diesel away merrily for ages. So we have degreased. Next we need to clean our piston up. Now I haven't got my drill here. Use your imagination. I'm holding a drill in this hand, a cordless drill. What we do is we put the piston by the latch rod into a cordless drill and we spin it up slowly, and the first thing we're looking for is any oscillation in the piston. Okay, if it oscillates, that means this latch rod isn't running perfectly straight, which means it can affect the shot cycle, it can affect the guides, it may even break a guide if it's out too badly. You can just bend this back by hand while it's in the drill. Next, you want to clean up the piston. This one you can see I've already done it. You'll notice I haven't bothered with the center part of the body of the piston. The rear of this is actually flared. You can feel it there. So the only part of the piston that's going to make any contact is this back part. So what I've done is I've polished that up, starting off with a medium grit, so about 140, 180 grit paper in the drill, spinning it up carefully just until any witness marks or scratches have gone. Then go to a 280 or smaller grit, a kind of fine grit, for a little bit more, and then finally some metal polish on a cloth just to get it nice and shiny. Well, you know, mirror finish is nice. People say, what's the point? It's one of the small things that you do that is part of it. All the little things add up at the end of the day. And you'll also see at the front, I do the front of the piston as well, just because it can be a little bit rough around some of these marks here where it's been punched in. Okay, so just make sure they're all lovely and smooth. Next, this is where it's going to get a little bit complicated, and we will need a calculator and some form of measuring stick. Now I've got my very near gauge, but you can just use a rod, a knitting needle or whatever, and then measure it again, pinch it and then measure it against things. I will explain why now. The HW35 has been around for many years. There are lots of different variants of it. When you take your piston out, there's a good chance, if it's an older one, it's got a leather piston seal. Now these almost never need replacing. If you have the leather piston seal, what you want to do is get yourself some saddle oil, neat's foot oil or something similar. You can use engine oil at a push, but if you get leather oil it is better. And what you do is you simply stand your piston nose down in a very small saucer of it for 24 hours. The leather will soak in the oil that it needs, rejuvenating it. And then when you rebuild the gun, it will form to the shape of the compression tube, and it will work for many, many more years to come. If you want a new leather piston seal, let me know, because I know a guy who makes them, Nick Simmons. He makes them, so I can get you one, or I can put you in contact with him to buy one. I would say there are conversion kits around on the market where you can convert a leather piston sealed gun to a synthetic seal. I'm not a fan of that. This is an opinion thing. Again, guys, your opinion may vary, but a gun that has a leather piston seal has been designed to work with a leather piston seal. The transfer port in the compression tube is of a size that will work with the stroke and the efficiency of a leather piston seal. In my experience and in my opinion, every HW35 that I've shot that's been converted from leather to synthetic shoots horribly. It's too sudden, it's too sharp, there's piston slam going on. I just don't like it. I'm not a fan. If you want more power, then you shouldn't be playing with an old leather piston sealed HW35. It's a 10 foot-pound rifle. The new ones are 12 plus, but the originals were 10. So you can convert it to a synthetic seal. Don't ask me for one, because even if I had them, I wouldn't have them, because I don't like them. I don't like them. Stick with the original. If you need an original one, ask me. And on a similar vein, actually, while I'm thinking of that, with the older ones, if you are struggling to make power, there is a known issue with older Weihrauch HW35s. It's called a porous breach. If you Google HW35 porous breach, you will get the information. Basically, the breech plug in the end of here has been soldered into place, or brazed, I should say, into place. On some of the older ones, the brazing has become porous, so it can lose pressure around the end plug as it's going in there. The fix for this is to use epoxy. You put liquid epoxy in there, and then pressurize it in with the piston, and that goes into all the porous parts and repairs it. There is information online. Take a look at that. If that is your issue, it will help you. So our piston, your piston may be a different length to this piston. The spring and guides that we send you are going to be perfect for the new piston. Okay, this is designed to be used in a new HW35, but it will work perfectly well in an old HW35, but you may need to cut the spring and or the guides to make it fit, and I'll show you how to check. What we need to do is drop your slip washer into your piston, and then get your top hat. Now remember, guys, the top hat and the rear guide in these are in there tight. They're nice and snug. It means it's a clockwise twist to remove or insert. Okay, if you try and pull it, well, this one does if you pull hard enough, but if you try and pull it, you're constricting the spring. It'll stop it from coming out. So it's get it twisting. Once it's moving, it'll just slide out. Okay, marigolds help if you haven't got a firm enough grip. So get your top hat and your slip washer and drop them into the piston there. And next we are going to measure, if I show you out of the gun, we're going to measure using our probe stick on the vernier gauge down to the shoulder of the top hat where the spring sits. We are going to measure from there to the back of the piston. To the back of the piston, the skirt of the piston, if you prefer. There. And this reads 94.09 millimeters. That is our spring room. Okay, we have room for 94 millimeters of spring. The reason we need to know that is our spring, when fully compressed, is basically just a bumpy tube. So when this is compressed, all we have space for inside of this particular piston is 94 millimeters. So we need to make sure our bumpy tube isn't more than 94 millimeters long. So we've taken our measurement. For me, it's 94 millimeters. Check your own individual gun. And then we are going to divide 94 millimeters by 3.6, because 3.6 is the diameter of the wire on our HW35 spring. So we get our calculator and we put in 94 divided by 3.6, and that tells us that 25.3 coils will fit inside of this gun. And you know what? This is a 25 coil spring. We made it deliberately that way for this gun. So in this gun, that will fit perfectly and give full power. If you have an older one with a smaller piston, you may need to reduce the size of your spring. Watch our how to reduce a spring video. It is quick, it is easier than anybody ever expects. And the next thing you need to do, if your piston is shorter, again, we've got a slip washer and we've got our top hat. We're going to put our rear guide through the flange like that, and we're going to pop that in there as well, and we're going to make sure that that sits flush on the back of the piston, because if it doesn't, it won't cock. Okay, and that is that. We've polished the piston, we've degreased everything, we have followed the advice on the record unit tuning adjustment video. You've gone and checked that out. So I do believe, now that we've cut our spring to suit, everything's going to fit inside of here. I do believe we are ready to re-lubricate the gun and rebuild it, and we will do that in the next video. Please like, subscribe, hit notifications, and you'll be told as soon as the next video is available. Thank you very much for watching. See you very soon. Goodbye.